welcome everyone. Officially now, let's get started. Everyone, this is Dimitri. We had a chance to work together on a project 1 year and a half ago, and he was engineering manager who was managing our team at the moment. It was pretty fun. We learned a lot from Dimitri, and him and I stayed in touch. So yeah, welcome Dimitri. Pleasure to have you with us. I will start off this meeting with a concrete question for you. So can you tell us more about what is the leadership lesson you learned the hard way while managing remote or hybrid teams? You manage teams like at Airbnb, at Snapchat, etc. So can you tell us more about what is the main lesson, if you would have to say one lesson which you learned during that time?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for having me, Alexa, and it's a real pleasure to be doing this with you, the very first one. I'm excited. It has been fun working with you in the past, so this is great. To your question, I think, you ask about lessons in leadership in working remote and hybrid teams. I'd say one thing right off the top of my head, hybrid and remote are two very different things. Um, I think remote is a very unique situation, but as far as hybrid is concerned, it often feels like a perk you give your employees. So it's in person, plus you can work from home a day or two, but you still have that physical proximity. You still have people coming to the office and building those relationships. And I think overall, a hybrid feels very much like in person with maybe some perks. I think when it comes to remote, especially during the pandemic, Airbnb went full remote and never came back. Some other companies did as well. And I think the biggest challenge with remote work for me, or the biggest lesson that I had, was that trust and collaboration are much, much more challenging in a remote environment. And I'll give a couple of examples. I mean, when it comes to trust, we all heard those stories of people working two jobs, or, you know, uh, I think that one is really speaks to me because in a remote environment, it's really difficult to know what people are working on or how they're working. And because computer science is so dependent on setting expectations, a lot of what we do is we ask our engineers, how long do you think something will take? Everybody's different, every problem is unique. And so it's very much around expectation building. And in a remote environment, you need to trust that your engineers are being genuine, being honest. And as an employer, it becomes really difficult in that kind of environment to manage people. Now, there are ways around it. You can have daily stand-ups. You can have you can set certain expectations around availability on Slack or other messaging platforms. But I think first and foremost, trust is a big one. Um, and the other one was collaboration. Um, there's this tendency to kind of lean into instant messaging when you're trying to solve problems. And I don't know if you've experienced this on your end, Alexa, but somebody could ask a question and it's like a 40, 50 message reply, and it lasts an entire day, or occasionally people will disagree and it's a back and forth. And it's really consuming everyone's time throughout that single day. Um, the difference, of course, if you're in person, you can have these conversations much quicker. I would always remind my people that if a conversation on Slack is taking more than 30 minutes or it's becoming a little contentious, just jump on a call. Slack has that great feature where you can like create a call right away. You like just jump on a call, talk to somebody. You can probably figure it out. You can hear from their tone if they're insisting on a specific solution, or if or what their challenge really is. I think you can drill down into problems a lot faster in video. But I do think collaboration is much more challenging. And now that I'm back in person full time right now, I see the difference that it makes on both fronts. You see how easy it is to be sitting next to somebody and someone tells you, "Hey, look at what I'm working on." And you bounce ideas off of each other. And all of a sudden you come up with something bigger. You're both learning something from each other. And these moments of serendipity, which I bundle in the whole communication side of things, those are very rare in a remote environment. Now, also, I would mention culture is difficult, especially during the pandemic. I would try to host these team building Zoom meetings. I don't think anybody particularly liked these team building Zoom meetings because it just meant they had to sit in front of their computer for another hour or two. One of my favorite ones is I ordered my entire team Lego sets, and we spent like 2, 3 hours building Legos together to a little bit of background music and kind of talking about life. This was, I think, summer of 2020. Um, it was cute, but I'm pretty sure most people would have rather just taken the time off of work. So, so I would say, trust and collaboration are the challenging things about remote work. Um, and culture, if it's important, of course, is also difficult to build. But I also know that it's a huge perk for the employees. A lot of people are willing to settle for a lower salary if they can work from somewhere close to their family, if they can be closer to their kids. So I do think it's a huge advantage to some people.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you very much for the detailed answer. So you're kind of touched a couple of important topics. So trust, collaboration, as the most important ones. And let's say if you were to build a high performing team in a remote friendly environment, let's say. So what would be probably the selection of the people needs to be better at the beginning. So is how important is to structure the interview, or what questions would you ask to someone, or what are those tiny bits where you can distinguish if someone can be a valuable team member even if the environment is remote. So those are kind of like human qualities, as you said, expectations. If you say, I rely on you to do that by 9th of September, you're expecting someone to do it. So what are these things which make difference in that process in your previous experience?
No, that's a great question. Um, Let me think about that for a moment. I would say you look for very similar qualities to when you're hiring in person, especially when it comes to a high performing team. I think right now is such a unique time in computer science. We've seen this once in 2008. We saw it in 2001 as well. Um, the how the unemployment rate amongst computer scientists today is much higher than it was in the past. So I think you can be incredibly selective about who
Mm-hmm.
you hire, but it doesn't change necessarily how the team composition or what a high performing individual is. I think specifically to a remote environment, you want to index on people who have a greater sense of ownership, people who
Mm-hmm.
have a great sense of initiative as well, right? You don't want people who are just waiting around to do something. You want people to look at a problem and say, this is my problem to fix. Um, People who communicate and collaborate really well. So, that I mentioned earlier, just being able to jump on a call rather than endlessly slacking, that remains true to this day. Um, and people who overcome challenging situations by, thinking big picture. I would say that to me is the definition of high performance, and it's even more true in a remote environment. And I would say like over-indexing on that sense of ownership, initiative, and collaboration. Now, when you're, of course, interviewing people, it's the classic STAR methodology: situation, oh my God, I forget what STAR stands for. Situate, or SBI. No, it's the idea that you're asking people to give concrete examples in their past behavior. So talking about ownership, you ask somebody, how have you demonstrated ownership in the past? What is a concrete example? What was the outcome of that? How did you get recognized for it? Similarly, with initiative, it is, what's an example of you taking initiative on something that you saw was a problem? Collaboration as well. It's how do you like to communicate? Have you ever led a project? Have you ever given status updates? What does that look like? What have you done successfully in the past? And so you really want to index on those factors in addition to technical expertise, or at least that's what I would do in a fully remote environment.
Yeah. Very, really, really interesting insights. One question I have about that is that you mentioned that people who are taking ownership or asking questions, who want to jump on the call, are those necessarily because I have mixed experience? So are those necessarily like the best people in terms of the technical wise?
Mhm.
So are those the best programmers? Or are they maybe not the best programmers, but there's someone who's not afraid to take the initiative? Because from my side and from some experience I have, some people who are not the best programmers, they're not afraid to jump in, learn, make mistakes. So those kind of people end up being the making the real difference on the project.
Yeah, I mean, you raise a really important point. And some of the best programmers that I've worked with have also been the most challenging programmers. The nice thing about remote, having excuse me, a remote culture is that you could be very selective. You have a much broader range of candidates to select from, right? As opposed to a single municipality or geographic area. When you're expanding the search to such a large demographic, you have the ability to be much more selective. Um, so I don't necessarily think that you should settle for one or the other, but to your point, I have seen situations where the most technically skilled programmer is, you know, maybe a little bit difficult to work with. And
Yep.
that is it comes with the territory, right? This is computer science after all. Um, and if you have such technical challenges that require the best programmers, I think you as the leader need to be aware of those, that it is going to be extra effort for you as the leader to kind of handle those personalities, if I could say so. Those people will challenge you. They will potentially go into a direction that you're not okay with. They might be building solutions that are overly complex that the rest of your team doesn't understand. And it's great to have somebody driving your technology forward. But if they become the only person that understands it or that agrees with this direction, what does that do for the rest of your team? Right. And you, as the technical leader, have to be incredibly cautious not to create a polarizing environment or to to make everybody else feel like they don't have a say in the decision making. I've asked engineers over and over again, would you rather have a very technically competent peer or somebody who's easy to get along with? And everybody said they'd rather have somebody that's easy to get along with. So just something to be aware of. That's not to say that in some technical situations, there are some areas where you really need smart people, right? Not smart, but maybe experts in a specific field, and they're hard to find. And you just have to deal with the fact that you have these challenging individuals to work with because of their domain of expertise. But I think for the most part, most of your team would rather have you hire people that are friendly and easy to work with than technical experts.
Definitely. Like, I would also add up to a situation which I personally had in a previous company where there was a high performing individual, but for example, when QA team reports a bug on the feature which he worked with, he spends days arguing with QA team that it's not actually the bug, that it's the QA team that does not understand the feature, and
Yeah.
it ends up being counterproductive for the team. So definitely same experience here, and I think communication is from my perspective, the crucial part here, and good communicators are really making difference and change in a world where like we are constantly surrounded with AI. We are inevitably using it every day. Everything is moving so fast. So I think the communication and that people effect, which you are talking about, will be more and more crucial in the future when choosing whether you want to work with someone or not. So I have a feeling that as they call them, soft skills will only become more and more important as time progresses. So
Mhm.
yeah, and we're here to talk about the AI as well. So I know that you're using a lot of AI tools, building your own AI tools. So over the past few years, while you were managing teams, so uh, were they encouraged to use AI tools? Of course, if it's allowed under the organization. And more important from my side is how does that impact the let's say difference between speed of delivery and quality? Are like engineers that are using AI, are they expected to deliver more fast than the ones who are not using? How is the balance between quality and speed being impacted by introducing AI to the whole story? That's what I love to hear from you.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And it's so pertinent today because AI is not perfect, or you're using Claude Code or Codex. They don't write the best code. So you have this situation now where a lot of people are leaning into it. Alexa, by the way, what does your team use? Do you use Claude Code? Do you have your engineers use it?
Yeah, we're using Cursor mostly. We are
Mostly
using,
Cursor.
yeah, mostly Cursor. We did not use a lot of Claude. We're using also Juni from JetBrains, which I would
Hmm.
take a moment to recommend to anyone. I know it's not the most I would say common one right now, but Juni integrated in JetBrains, and working on Android projects, Kotlin multi-platform projects, even React Native projects. It's working pretty nicely. So we're doing mostly Juni and Cursor. We haven't used Claude like a lot.
Oh, very
And
cool. Yeah.
yeah, one more thing. So everyone in this chat, yeah, please fire. Yeah, we're trying Firebender for JetBrains too. Nice, nice. If you're using some AI tool for coding and for assisting, please write it in the chat, and yeah, we will be discussing it. And yeah, back to you, Dimitri.
Yeah, but to your original question about shipping quickly and quality, um, this isn't a new problem with AI. When I when I started managing the messaging team at Airbnb, the it was a brand new team. We were kind of carving out this section of the product that was to become a messaging platform. I think when I joined, we had something like 300 bugs,
Wow.
of like small bugs, large bugs, inconsistencies across iOS, Android, web, Mo web. Um, and this was like at the time, I think this was a $20 billion company, right? So this idea of moving fast and building with quality, this isn't new to right now. This has existed forever. Like every startup wants to move as quickly as possible. And now it's AI. It used to be you hire a bunch of junior engineers and you're like, just build product. You know, we'll figure out the rough parts afterwards, but let's just build as much product as possible to kind of create that moat. Um, so realistically, I think the question is this challenge that we've had in our industry forever of moving quickly and building with quality. How do you balance that in the age of AI, where you're not just writing at a human speed, you're writing at an AI speed, right? Um, and what I've noticed from personal experience, what I've noticed working on this team as well, is that as the developer tools increase from a authoring perspective, the developer tools increase from a review perspective. So one thing we did at Shepherd, the company I'm working on today, is add Cursor to our review process. So inside of GitHub, whenever somebody submits a review, Cursor will go and it will start checking the code to see if there are any bugs. The nice thing, of course, is that it takes the human out of the equation. I don't know how you feel about PR reviews from other people, but generally they tend to be fairly superficial. It's like a lot of syntactic reviews, maybe some spelling issues. Occasionally it'll be like a question around the architecture. But the nice thing about AI is it will really dive deep into what you've written, how you've written it, and it will raise things that no other human has raised before. Even myself as a reviewer, when I go to a PR that's already been passed through by Cursor in this particular case, and I see the comments at least behind, I'm like, oh, this is really good. This is like let's have the person address those first, and I'll tell them about how the name of a function is probably not the best name of a function. So I think the nice thing is we have the authoring and the reviewing side are going along side by side really quickly. Um, One day I hope we can eliminate PR reviews entirely. I think
Mhm.
we have these guardrails in place, but I don't know that anybody particularly loves reviewing other people's code. It kind of takes you away from your own work. It could potentially create some tension with another person if you feel like their architecture is incorrect. And in some circumstances, people are just accepting PRs and not even looking at them, right? So I think it's actually been a huge plus, at least in my experience, to integrate AI into the review process. Um, from the code authoring side, and maybe Alexa, you're still coding a little bit, right? You're
Yeah.
still writing code. So you probably have seen this just as I have, that the more you delegate to Cursor, to Claude Code, to Codex, or whomever, the more you're, as an engineer, acting as an architect. You're acting as a mentor almost. And I say that with massive quotes because this is an AI we're talking about. But you're no longer typing things, you're asking things, you're receiving results, and you're saying, okay, well, there's duplicate logic here, or this query is inefficient, or it doesn't follow some kind of standard that you've set um, as a company. So if you as the engineer, or me myself sometimes, if I as the engineer are asking some kind of AI system to write code on my behalf, I feel a huge sense of responsibility to also make sure that I stand behind the PR that it's going to deliver. So, in fact, rather than the next person being the reviewer of my code, I'm the reviewer of my code. And I become the guardian of the output, right? And I just had this experience with Claude Code the other day. I wanted to prototype this new feature. And within 2 days, I prototyped one, demoed it. People weren't crazy about it. I prototyped a completely different version the following day and it completely wrote it. And I demoed it. People were like, all right, this is the direction we want to go in. And then I spend the next 2, 3 days fixing it and making sure the quality of the code itself was up to my standards. I could have shipped it. It would have been a terrible PR. Um, but I took the time for it to meet my expectations so that by the time somebody else looked at it, it felt like I could stand behind it. I could put my name behind this work. So I think if anything, AI is making us not only more productive, but able to deliver higher quality work. And it's a really exciting time right now. Like, not since Stack Overflow have I seen so much excitement in our industry about writing code and building products.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. This was a wonderful perspective and summary. And I'd like to touch up on a few things there.
Of course.
I loved the moment of integrating cursor into PR reviews. That's something I only saw recently. And also 100% true what you said, like mostly if you're working on some large scale app, like you end up asking people for reviews. Nobody wants to review it. They just push if the code is pretty much fine, they will push the the approve button and that's it. And definitely we will need to dive in deeper about how Cursor is doing reviews. So definitely something worth investigating. I wrote already note to myself to do it. But what do you think about the moment of cursor, like being at some point in the future, like being able to automatically apply those changes? Will the human always be the reviewer on top of that, or it'll just close the loop and close the gap and kind of, I would not say remove the human out of the equation, but you
Mhm.
understand where I'm going here. Because I feel right now also, as I wrote a bunch of code in React Native recently, which I had pretty limited experience with, and I was pretty much, as you said, the orchestrator behind it, but I needed to pay more attention because I stood behind that code. So I needed to understand every line, even if it was AI generated. So definitely, I agree with you that was benefiting me as well from the engineering perspective. But do you have a feeling that at some point people will be drawn outside of the equation? Cursor will create PRs, cursor will review them, or you don't see that coming?
You know, I ask myself that question all the time because you see all of these LinkedIn posts and Reddit posts of people just like vibe coding production applications. And I do believe that there is a space in which you can deliver an entire product entirely vibe coding it, right? If you're just doing usability tests at the end of the day and you're like, oh, this button doesn't do what I thought it was going to do, then you're reviewing at a higher level. You're doing like usage QA rather than code reviews. Um, at the end of the day, and this was my opinion early on when this whole AI came out, is at the end of the day, somebody has to put their reputation behind this output. Whether you're a lawyer or a doctor or a programmer or whatever, someone's name has to be attached to the end product, right? It's a tool. You're the person that is saying, I'm using this tool and it's okay. So it really, I think, depends on both the quality of the tool that you're using and how confident you are with the output. Coming back to my earlier example about Airbnb having all of these bugs, you didn't need a perfect product in order to ship a product. And this was before AI. You just needed to trust that it was good enough for people to use. We had security vulnerabilities, I'm sure. I didn't know of any, but we code security vulnerabilities. They had tons of inefficiencies. The site would occasionally go down. So could an AI have vibe coded a similar thing? Maybe, But at the end of the day, someone's name has to sign off on it. As the tools get better, if you or your engineers feel comfortable just having it write code for them and submit a PR, and then another AI reviews the PR, and then another AI does a usability test on it. I think the question to you, Alexa, is as the person who's leading teams with engineers, are you comfortable with them vibe coding? And then your company's reputation is the one that is ultimately affected by it. And I truly believe that's something you have to figure out as an organization, right? Do coding standards matter anymore? Um, do large code bases and efficiencies, does any of that matter? Or are you okay just saying productivity and you go as quickly as possible? And you say, let's not do the traditional, way of software development, and let's just go as quickly as possible. I think you as the organization, your market, and everything else will dictate that answer. But yeah, somebody still needs to sign off on it.
Yeah, that's a really interesting perspective. Me personally, I'll never thought about it in that way, but actually makes a lot of sense. And I was thinking about what would be my decision if I would be open to just AI writing the code, AI reviewing the code. And probably, as you said, it depends on the circumstances. It depends on the project. It depends on the times, on if we are working on a project which we want to release on the App Store and Play Store for ourselves. It's our product that we want to validate. Then yeah, let's try to leverage those tools. But if we are working, that would be my assumption. If we're working for something which we are providing to the clients, and I'm personally standing behind it, then I would
Mhm.
99%. I would not want to rely on everything being AI generated and vibe coded. But if it's something that I just want to ship as quickest as I can to get to the App Store and Play Store and just validate if that product we have in mind makes sense, as you did with your feature, then for that kind of things, I think AI is a great use case, and it kind of follows up to the next topic I want us to cover shortly, and it's like, how do you see you manage the mobile teams, and how do you see AI dictating the direction of technology choice when it comes to the mobile
Mhm.
development? Do you think that in the future people will be making decision between, I don't know, Flutter or React Native or iOS Android Native or Kotlin multi-platform based on what has better AI support or better AI frameworks which we are talking about and are working alongside the technology. How much do you think it'll be important in the
Yeah.
future?
No, I think that's a great question. But to the previous point, to your previous point about relying too much on AI or anything else. I mean, I remember a time where vendor lock-in was a dirty word. You absolutely did not want to be tied to a single database engine or to a single cloud provider, and everything had to be, God forbid you relied only on Amazon or only on MySQL for your database. You wanted to have as many options as possible. Over the last 10 years, we stopped talking about it. People are more than happy to use Amazon services as their backend of choice. People are more than happy saying, we're not going to use MySQL, we're going to use Postgres. And that is their technology forever after, right? So I think the industry has these fads that it goes through, has these hesitations about adopting things, but eventually leans into them incredibly heavily. Um, but about
Mhm.
speaking of technology, sorry, you were going to say something.
No, no. I just wanted to say an example from today. What happened? Like the mobile network provider here in Serbia stopped. Google stopped working for us. So every Google services stopped working for us. So as you said, like we are always leaning on one particular thing, and it has um, high percentage of let's say it will probably not go down, but when it comes down, then you will probably feel it. So you're today I was like, I cannot log into my Gmail account, I cannot do anything. So it was
Hmm.
kind of a little bit of panic attack thing. So yeah,
Hmm.
definitely understand where you're going, but yeah, once the people pick a technology, then yeah, as you said, in the past 10 years they tend to stick with that. So yeah, and well, let's talk about the choosing of the mobile frameworks and AIs, because I have a feeling you know that Xcode has been way behind with its AI engines. They recently added some support, but it's still way behind what you can do in Cursor and all of the other things.
Hmm.
And I have a feeling that people are starting to pick up different frameworks and different things because they don't get that AI support from Apple right now. So I wanna discuss that. How are you seeing that situation right now?
100%. And 100, and it pains me so much because, I've been in the industry for quite a while. I've tried a lot of different programming languages. I genuinely feel that Swift is my favorite language. Close second, Kotlin maybe, but if I could code in Swift for the rest of my life, I absolutely would. It's such a beautiful language. It's so easy to write. It's performant. But I think to your point, it going even beyond just having it integrated into the IDE. Like a lot of these LLMs are trained on publicly available source code, right? So they'll scour GitHub, they'll scour Stack Overflow, maybe some of the really old code sharing repos from when I was a kid and like it was all PHP. And that's what AIs or all of these LLMs are trained on and fine-tuned on specifically around coding. And unfortunately, there isn't that much Swift code out there. There is a lot of Python code. There's a lot of C code, from C and C++, from the operating systems, the open source operating systems out there. And I think the reality is that the more popular open source languages are going to be the ones that win out in the long term. Um, Python is incredibly easy for an LLM to code in because there's so much Python code because it's such a terse syntax. It's easy to use and it's easy to generate with. And now you have typed Python too, right? You can do type annotations. JavaScript is the same thing. I mean, you could just read the source code of any website, and you have a function that can be read by an LLM to be trained on, to be executed. And so, more so than where the tools are embedded, I think is how good is the end result? How quickly can you move with an LLM within your language of choice? I mean, you've been using, I forget the specific tool you use in JetBrains. How would you rate the quality of the output when compared, let's say, to React Native that you've done?
Yeah, I would say that Cursor would probably do a better job
Hmm.
with that. Quality of the code was good, but a lot of, as you said, architectural things. That's where I needed to or orchestrate it. And getting back to what you said is like, um, you think not only the integration with the AI is important, it's the end result. And yeah, of course, end result depends based on the project and based on the expectations. And we've
Hmm.
personally worked with a lot of startups who end up not being released on time, breaking deadlines, burning money because they want that perfect perfect product and the perfect software. And then you mentioned just now that Airbnb had $300 when you came there. So I want to shortly elaborate on that. Like delivering fast, is that something which is like still and will continue to be the most important thing, and being able to pivot and try many different things? And I have a feeling, based on our discussion, as I'm thinking about it now, that like the main benefit of doing AI assistant coding is that you are able to more quickly try out different things. So what is your feeling about that perfect product, about chasing metrics like uh, zero bugs, like
Mhm.
ANRs, or things like that? So probably you have them as KPIs in Airbnb and Snapchat probably. But what is your feeling about them, and how important are they going forward? Or is it more important just to ship something which will make sense for the users?
Yeah, no, it's always you know, in our industry, no one gives a definite answer, and so I will say it depends. It really depends on the area you're working in. I've been fortunate to work at a lot of different companies, and each one prioritizes things differently. Some companies want to grow as big as possible, and it's impossible to grow big quickly and have zero bugs. It's just like it's unfeasible. Um, when you're a bank app, right, you probably don't want to have bugs, or you don't want to have medium, high, or critical bugs, right? You can have like UI bugs, but you certainly don't want to make people feel like they can't trust um, your product. Uh, you have other companies that are very UI heavy. Looking at Apple, they have bugs. They have like medium and high bugs that they ship all the time. But for them, quality is all about the user experience. Does it look good? Does it have standards? Um, Obviously, if you're building airplane software, you can't have any bugs. Let's be honest. Like it has to be near flawless or flawless. When I worked at Altruist, which was software for financial advisors, they were not as focused on the performance of their endpoints, what Airbnb would call like a simply a non-shippable feature, just because your P90 and backend response takes over 3 seconds. In financial software, sometimes that's okay, right? So it's really all about the context in which you're operating. Setting expectations are really important in this particular sense. And then you look at Snapchat, and they had an entire team dedicated to how quickly the app starts from the moment you press that button, when you press the app button, right? And they would optimize it to like 300, 200 milliseconds. It was incredible to see what engineers were able to do. So, I mean, back to your question, I really think it depends on the context of the industry you're in. Um, if yeah, I know you work with a lot of different clients, and fully understanding what their customers prioritize and how they want their brand to be perceived, how they want their product to stand out within the market, I would say those are the things that are going to drive your decision making about, is an A&R important? An A&R based, or like even a memory leak, is not important if people spend 30 seconds within your application. Could you give me 1 second?
Sure, no problem. So let's go over the things which you wrote here. Max is asking about the future of MCP protocols. Yeah, that's something that we can discuss later.
Hmm.
Getting back to you, Dimitri, now. So
Hmm.
what you said, definitely. Understanding the end user requirements. So I think that, at least from our perspective, I'm now talking as a agency and as a service provider. So we see the end user expectations at some scenarios different than our clients. So I'll give you an example. So we were working on an app which was like, let's say, some version of Instagram. We were
Hmm.
having a team of 3 or 4 engineers, and the main requirement from the clients was to make it as performant as on Instagram. And we were doing all sort of different things: image loading optimizations, manipulations with UI kit loading of the cells, and basically everything just in order to try to achieve something which, from my perspective right now, would not mean that much to the end user. It's not the, let's say, the primary feature even. So that's kind of like, at least for us, the constant, as Brian is saying right now. So it's constant balance of how we are seeing the end user requirements and how the stakeholders of the projects, or if you're working in an organization, or how the end clients are seeing the user requirements. There can be a mismatch there, and it's a constant game. But yeah, definitely it depends on the project. So yeah, thank you very much, Dimitri. I'd like to spend the last 8 minutes of this meeting to have a short Q&A. I see some people writing in the chat. So let's start with Max. Max wants to, definitely this will be out on and recorded, but Max wants to ask, what is the feeling of MCP? What is our feeling about MCP protocols? I haven't experimented a lot in that area, so you can take over, Dimitri.
I think honestly, MCP is phenomenal. I can't wait for service providers. So let's say Google with Gmail and Calendar and all of the Office suites to start providing MCP servers that you just log into. Um, I hope to see a lot of adoption with this because just like with single sign-on, it should be fairly Firebase is a dangerous one, especially if you give it right permission. Be careful. Be careful with that one. The I would say I can't wait for every service provider with every SaaS to be providing MCP as well with single sign-on functionality. I have Claude Code always on the right-hand side that I ask questions that I have to do a little bit of work. If my IDE can connect to my Gmail, it can connect to my calendar, it can connect to all of these different things, all of a sudden my terminal or that little pane inside of my IDE becomes my personal assistant, not just my coding assistant. Um, Granted, it, AI is not 100% perfect, and I would not give it right permissions. But in terms of querying things, in terms of, let's say, using a project management piece of software and saying, hey, what's the ID of the ticket that I'm working on, rather than having to pull up a web browser, go to a link, find my personal tasks. Um, I could just have it pull that up right as a in the coding assistant window. And I can't wait for a world where MCP becomes such a standard and that we can integrate it with things like OpenAI's ChatGPT. I think that's going to be a really exciting time. So I'm super stoked. I hope more people enable it. I think the standard isn't quite there yet, but I am really excited about that future.
So basically, you think it'll be a huge performance boost for everyone working with these AI assisted environments, because you would not have to go outside of the environment to check something, do something. So everything will be more or less integrated in that. So nice, 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 nice. I never tried. Yeah, go.
And I would even say beyond that, this might be somewhat of a controversial opinion, but I wonder what the future of UI is going to be. let's say, and I realize I'm speaking to a mainly mobile engineering audience here, but let's assume that you're interacting on a regular basis with ChatGPT. I mean, a lot of us are, right? And then you've given it permission to access your Gmail and all of these other things. Maybe you've given it permission to access Slack as well, your company account, and all of these different things. It really reduces the need to have a lot of functionality within all of these services. Now, they still need a UI, but if people are going to be using more and more their personal assistants to answer basic questions, then the need for a fully fleshed out, fully developed user interface might be lessened, might be less important to the overall satisfaction of using a product like that. Um, it doesn't mean UX and UI are going to disappear, but maybe they're going to be less important in the future as through MCP you're able to connect all of these services inside of your AI assistants.
Yeah, that's a wonderful perspective. And yeah, now Ray-Ban is has released these glasses where you can do all sorts of things. So also from my kind of feeling is that world will potentially switch to the place where maybe mobile phones will not be as we are using them right now. Everything will be more integrated. There will be more simple. We would not have to carry them away and open them always to just to do some tasks. So definitely that's somewhere in the future. We just need to see how far in the future. That's what I think, but that's definitely coming. So yeah, we are mobile engineers primarily, but yeah, we will need to adapt. Yeah, Clive saying I think soon some software will be redundant. You'll be able to create throwaway software on demand. Yeah, exactly, something like that. And Leon is raising a concern that and the rules of play change. So we have 3 or 4 companies guarding the entire software development plus learning from it. Dependency to service to ship your products. So basically, I think here what Leon is trying to say, if we let the AI too much of the ownership, we are putting it in somehow in the hands of 1 or 2 powerful companies and powerful players. So what's your opinion about that, Dimitri? Do you see it as a concern or?
Uh, in my time in this industry, I've seen consolidation come and go. There was a time when Internet Explorer dominated the browser market, and everybody was, I mean, I remember writing CSS specifically to address the bugs in Internet Explorer because it was 80% or 90% of the market. I forgot how much it was, but this was like 2007, 2008. We were all aware that Google dominated the search market to the extent that, yeah, see, Leon knows. We were all aware that Google dominates the search market, so much so that there's a whole industry of search engine optimization that came to be. But these days, I would argue that Amazon dominates the server market. If you're a backend engineer and you don't know how to build on top of Amazon, it it lowers your employability in the market, even if you do specialize in other areas such as Microsoft services or Oracle or something. So consolidation is just a common theme in our industry because we're a global industry. Companies that succeed at on a scale that goes beyond boundaries. It's like you could only have one social network, you could only have one, and so like monopolies are fairly common. It doesn't mean that the industry will doesn't change. I think every decade we see new players come on the scene and start to dominate a market. Um, Trends change, tastes change. I personally don't see this being an issue. Um, Eventually, if whoever is in power, whoever's in charge is doing a bad job, somebody else will come around and step into that role and become the next monopoly. I think we just all have to get comfortable with the idea that occasionally one player will dominate for a little while.
Definitely. That's something I think at this stage is unfortunately or luckily unavoidable. It'll just depend how uh, to how much extent will that company or set of companies actually expand and benefit from the AI and from everything. And I think on our side we just need to find our place in that new quotes
Mhm.
new world. So we need to adapt. Okay, we're past the time, but I want just to go over one more thing which is in the chat. One more question. I wonder what your perspective is on leveraging AI plus cross-platform frameworks like Kotlin, Compose multi-platform. To me, it seems that you'd get the biggest lift from AI using cross-platform frameworks, and that's something we briefly touched. Do you feel,
Mhm.
Dimitri, it will be some space for native development still, or you think world will be switching to cross-platform because with AI assisted coding and cross-platform, you're just able to ship so fast?
Yeah, that's a good question, Ryan. Um, I'll allude to something that we spoke about earlier, which is that AIs are trained or LLMs are trained on open source software. And by their very nature, most cross-platform solutions are open source. So you're going to get a bit of a benefit there, probably just by leveraging something like React Native or Kotlin multi-platform, because the source code is available and it's been trained on, and there's a lot of availability. Um, Specifically for cross-platform, I don't necessarily know that you're going to see that huge of a change. I mean, building once and shipping it twice is already a massive, massive win. Like every company out there is trying to do this, even if a company is not explicitly trying to build or use cross-platform frameworks. I can assure you, they all have tools in-house that allow you to ship the same marketing page across three different platforms. So already leveraging these tools is a huge win for any organization. Um, but the same rules applies that if you need the closest experience to native, you're probably going to lean into native technologies um, where necessary. And with AI not generating the most efficient code, uh, the same companies that need native functionality or native performance are probably going to those LLMs are not going to generate the kind of performant code that they need. You probably don't want LLMs generating C code for a kernel because they're just not going to generate the most efficient C code for a kernel. So you still need to be very conscious of the needs of your particular industry, of your client, and so on. Um, I would stop there and say, like, that's kind of my thinking. But realistically, cross-platform is great. LLMs with cross-platform is also great, but it's the same rules that apply to even before AI. Um, do you need cross-platform? Do you need native? That's the big question.
Definitely, from my perspective, uh, definitely what you said, Dimitri, makes a lot of sense. So even before, it's the same question, which is still in place. I have a feeling that Kotlin multi-platform, and I need to say it now, has been a huge game changer, and it's
Mhm.
not only because we heavily invested in it, like in terms of technology or in getting used to technology 2 years ago, but because it has the like best of both worlds. Like we are sharing a lot of common code, business logic, view models, and we are having the UIs being built natively. Even though to add on top of that in Kotlin multi-platform, if you want some UI to be shared, you can share it and have the rest of the navigation code and everything in Swift UI. But that one particular view, which is just a REST API call, it can be written in Compose and being used with rest of the code. And that kind of, I think that difference between Kotlin multi-platform and other cross-platform frameworks like Compose, even Compose multi-platform, Flutter, React Native, that benefit of having it being integrated within the native code base is something which is making a huge difference. And we have did a lot of migrations where we migrated existing iOS apps and Android apps from the clients from purely native to Kotlin multi-platform. And it's pretty much just dragging, dropping the existing iOS app under the created Kotlin multi-platform, adding a couple of build scripts, and every new feature from that moment on, you can write in Kotlin multi-platform, and it can work with existing code base. So in terms of the adoption from the existing projects, because taking into consideration, we have a lot of not legacy, but projects which are there the long term. So they are projects which are built 10 years, Airbnb. They probably don't want to reinvent everything and rewrite everything from scratch, because that will be not efficient. But they can leverage Kotlin multi-platform and do kind of the middle solution. So yeah, that's what it is from my perspective. We're preparing also some templates projects from Kotlin multi-platform and Compose multi-platform, and yeah, I'll be sharing you with all of them pretty soon. So yeah, but
I would love to, and I would love to hear at one point your story about this client that wants an application developed that is as performant as Instagram. It's because the way I see it is Instagram has entire teams, like dozens of engineers, just fine-tuning every single millisecond of the delivery of the next image, of the next video. So this idea that somebody can hire an agency to compete with Instagram is a good one.
That will be a separate topic, but definitely it will be a longer one, Dimitri. Trust me on that one. So yeah, we're already past our schedule. So thanks everyone for joining, and thank you for attending this meeting. Special thanks to you, Dimitri, for sharing with us all of the valuable insights from the industry. You've been an engineering leader. You've been a software engineer for so long time. So your perspective, I think we all saw now that you see things from a much higher perspective. You're zooming out, and that's what I love about you. And that's how I learned so many things. When we work together in these chats, you always kind of make me think, oh, I didn't think about that one. I didn't think about that one. So thank you very much for sharing that perspective with all of us here. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Alexa. Really appreciate you setting this up, and it's always a pleasure to chat with you.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of the day, and see you on next webinar next month, probably.